Richard Haass, the president of the Council on Foreign Relations, joins us to discuss the high stakes of President Trump's Asia visit. Richard, good morning.
Good morning.
You've worked in the State Department before in multiple administrations. How is what's going on, this chaos in the State Department, affecting foreign policy?
Well, the short answer is it's bad at both ends of the process in terms of the advice that the president, the secretary of state are not getting. And then secondly, when it comes to implementation, the fact that the president's heading off to Seoul, North Korea is the centerpiece of the visit. We don't have an ambassador there. We don't have the access to the government there that we need. We don't get the advice we need. This is a self-inflicted wound, an own goal, as they say.
Yeah, and how detrimental is it when, as you're heading out, it's not a ringing endorsement for your Secretary of State to say, we'll see. It's been my experience when you're told that, that means he ain't going to be here long.
And it's not the first time this has happened.
Right.
When the Secretary of State was recently meeting in China with his counterparts, the president was tweeting away that stop wasting your time, diplomacy's going nowhere. It puts him in an impossible situation. And it's not just about Rex Tillerson, it's about who comes after Rex Tillerson. If the president isn't determined to make sure his Secretary of State will succeed, the Secretary of State can't succeed.
So let's not just focus on personnel, let's focus on policy, because this is a really significant trip to Asia. Where do you see as some of the most important things he can accomplish?
Well, the two big issues are North Korea, to see if you can get a common front with China, South Korea, Japan, to put greater pressure on North Korea to the point it will actually make a difference. The second big issue is trade. The president's got 5 stops. Trade will figure prominently in each one. And it's really the United States that's out of sync. Remember, the first big foreign policy decision of this president was what? To yank the United States out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So we are completely out of sync with our allies, and potentially we could be in something of a trade confrontation with China.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a week that should have been about preparing for this trip, you had the Mueller investigation, the indictments coming down. Does this cloud what the president is trying to do?
Well, it doesn't help, obviously, but for the locals there, they're used to dealing with American presidents under pressure. They had Ronald Reagan during Iran-Contra, Bill Clinton during the impeachment. So this is not fundamentally new, and obviously Nixon. But it could be a distraction in some ways for this president. And it's a backdrop you don't need. Life's tough enough in Asia, particularly with North Korea. This is a country that's months or at most a year away from having nuclear weapons they can put on missiles that'll reach the United States. We don't need any distractions.
So what would your definition of success look like for this trip?
Two things. It would be the avoidance of a real trade war. I think that's the most you could hope for. The idea that we would actually re-enter the Trans-Pacific Partnership ain't going to happen. It would be good, but it won't happen. Mm-hmm. The real question, though, is can we get more of a common front to put more pressure on North Korea so it would make a difference? That's where China comes in. And quite honestly, Gayle, I don't see it happening. China is unlikely, not unable, but unlikely and unwilling to agree with us to put the kind of pressure on North Korea that would really make an appreciable, measurable difference. So I don't think you can get success on this.
Well, by the way, too, we're hearing, too, that the president may meet with Putin on this trip in the Philippines. North Korea. The White House wants to put pressure on North Korea for these oil and gas shipments that are going into North Korea.
Right, and Russia's become something, again, a spoiler. Russia votes for sanctions in the UN. The same afternoon, it ships things to North Korea in contravention of sanctions. So it would help to get Russia on board, China on board, more than they are, but they're not going to do enough to really decide things.
And then quickly, the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, saying that the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is the only acceptable outcome.
I see that as a really unhelpful comment. It's obviously a desirable outcome, not going to happen. Are we willing to accept some lesser interim stages? If not, then we are basically saying we don't believe in diplomacy, which either means we live with a North Korea that can threaten us or we go to war. I do not understand why we are not embracing more modest diplomatic outcomes.
Yeah. There's a lot of things people don't understand, but we're all watching. We'll see what happens. Thank you very much, Richard Haass.